are next morning. I'm off for my morning constitutional, and by that I mean I'm going to take a walk, first walk of the day, not a bowel movement. Although, I'm going to show you here what we managed to do in the bed in the greenhouse area. And we're going to go take a walk. The woods take on a completely new characteristic around this time. It's about 6:30, 7 o'clock a.m. Eastern. People are on their way to work. And I as well am going to clock in soon, but first, a walk. I'm going to have my coffee and try and get in a new routine of doing this in the morning and getting some fresh air and hopefully building some energy for the day. That's not a knife. Now that's a knife. Might bring this along too. Yesterday I started to take off the tree protectors from the smaller treelings here in the back that we planted last year. They're really not growing. I'm not seeing any major growth on them. And I think maybe the tree protectors were stifling them. They weren't getting enough light. So I have removed the tree protectors. It's hard to tell if they're even still alive at this point. Not enough light to really focus in on these. I mean, some of them look good, but I just don't know how much growth they've really experienced. But now, there's no buds on these. This one kind of had some budding going on at the top here. Again, I'm not sure if you're able to see that or not, but this one's doing okay. Funny enough, the one that's doing the best is the trust apple, so I trust it. There's another one there. Just so afraid that something's going to come along and chew it up. This one is definitely taller than it was, so it's experienced a little bit of growth, but without light, it's not going to trigger that growth spurt, so we're going to put some chicken wire cages around these instead. Won't protect as much from rodents, but hopefully it'll be enough to deter the few deer that may come around here. We don't really have an issue with deer, but the tree protectors that I pulled off of these went on our new trees to really protect them because they need it the most. So those are all protected, caged up, some of them as well. Working on our front garden over there, expanding the beds. And eventually we're really going to do something with this side here. This is a north-facing wall, so it's hard to grow stuff here. I shouldn't say it's hard to grow stuff, but you got to grow the right plants on a north-facing wall. So shade tolerant. It's about -5°C this morning. Looks like we had a robin nesting in there. She's fat too. Oh, it's not a robin. What is that? Maybe it is a robin. It's got a whole bunch of nest material. Couldn't tell. It's got the red belly. It must be a robin. Yeah, it is. Little chickadees. The magnolia here that was doing so well with all this cold, it's having trouble keeping its flowers, so I don't expect that to last too long, but it is growing some new ones there. There's some greenery coming through, so it is alive. That first bloom was a little weird. It started coming in at the store and then it's finished blooming here, and I think it's done. I think it's done blooming because it's just too cold still. End of April and we're still getting some frost, so that's not expected to stop until another 2 weeks at least. Mid-May is when we're supposed to get the last frost. So, but here's what we were able to do yesterday. Kids getting ready for school, playing outside before getting on the bus. So we got our swing set up finally. Turf war. These are all the things you don't see during any other time of the day. So we were able to dig the contour of the greenhouse here. We discovered gravel on the right side. So that's kind of a blessing and a curse. Obviously, it's a real pain in the butt to dig into that. But since we're going to fill this up with gravel anyway, we figured we'll just leave this here. This used to be part of the driveway that went all the way around the house. So we're just going to leave it here on this side. It's about 2 or 3 inches deep on that side. And it goes to almost a foot on the other side. But the less gravel I have to buy, the better, since there's already some there anyway. And decided to make a path here. I think I talked about this a little bit yesterday, but just enough to walk by in front of the greenhouse. Get by if ever we want to, reach the strawberry flower bed from the other side if we need to. It's nice to have options. And the stuff that we were pulling out from the trench here, we were just throwing on top of this side since this is going to be our raised bed anyway. Might as well start filling it up. And the stuff that has lots of rocks in it, no big deal. It's going to serve as extra drainage. So I may very well do the same thing on this side, not as wide, since these are going to be vining plants on this side. So maybe, I think we figured it was going to be 3 feet for the bed, 3 feet for the path, and then whatever's left, I think 2 feet for this side. So probably going to do the same idea and take the middle sod, flip it upside down and put it on the left side here. And then the interior will be pretty much done for now. So next up, get some gravel. We're going to have some gravel delivered anyway because the driveway needs to be fixed. That'll fill out that trench. A couple of wheelbarrows should do it. It's taking on its shape. It's coming into existence. It's becoming real. You can actually visualize it now, so it's exciting. But I am off for my walk into the woods, trying to make a habit of this. Do some observing. I don't get a chance to get out here early morning. It's usually a rush to get ready for work, get the kids off to school, and it's nice to be able to step away before work, get some fresh air, energize a little bit, sip on my coffee, and just enjoy another side of nature. One thing, I brought my machete, as I mentioned earlier, just in case I see anything that's just in the way. And of course, I did put my big boots on because it is prime tick weather right now. As for the fiddleheads, I did check those out yesterday, and they're not quite ready to be picked yet. Some of them, I guess, are pretty small and they're tender at that age. The really small ones that are like barely unfurling. I could go and clip those away, but I'm going to give it another week or so. Guessing they're not growing as much because of the cold weather, so we'll give those another week or so. It's nice to have some stem at the base of the fiddleheads as well. Just extra nutrition. As long as they're not completely unfurling, they should be edible just the same. They're not going to be fibrous or anything at that point. So I'm waiting until they get maybe, I don't know, an inch or two of stem. Then I'm going to go ahead and pick them. Another thing I'm on the lookout for this morning is Ange was telling me there are some tree protectors on some of these maples that are getting pretty tight. So if I can with my knife, I'm just going to come along and cut those so they don't girdle the tree or get stuck in the bark over time. Just maintenance. And speaking of maintenance, I'm also looking for spots that need to be trimmed. Let's go check out that mushroom log too at the same time. Looking for trees that need to be trimmed, any dangerous widow makers that may be hanging over. I know of a couple spots that definitely need to be done, but I need to fix my chainsaw. I threw off the timing on it. I've got the spline tool to fix it. I just don't have the know-how to set it to the proper RPMs and whatnot, so I need to fool around with that today, get my chainsaw going, come out here, cut some wood, get the four-wheeler out, pull stuff out like this. The bottom here, drag that back home, cut it up, burn it. I'm also on the lookout for some overhanging sugar maple logs that we can inoculate for shiitake mushrooms eventually. Apparently shiitakes love sugar maples, any hard wood apparently, so I'm on the lookout for that. But check out this birch. I think I've showed this before a few times, but I think it's really cool. And this is a good indication that mushrooms would grow very well here. I showed this in pretty good detail on one of my other vlogs, but here you have it up close and personal. I have no idea what kind of mushrooms these are. Of course, if any of you guys out there know what these are, they seem to grow exclusively on birch. It's one of the first mushrooms to colonize the birch as it dies, so I'd be really curious to see if anybody out there knows what kind of mushroom this is. I'll give you a shot of the underside. It's a little dark. I can turn my light on. I don't know if that's going to help or not, but yeah, not really. It's just a bad angle. Can't really focus, but it seems to have gills. Does it have gills? I can't tell now. Maybe not. No gills. Just kind of a flat, powdery look underneath. So, really curious if anyone out there knows what kind of mushroom this is. Again, it's growing on birch. Let me know in the comments. I would very much appreciate that. There's one spot actually that's very dangerous. I'll show you that here in a second. There is a tree or a couple of trees that have fallen over on themselves, and it's a whole pack of them is hanging over the trail. So I'm afraid that, you know, I'll be out here one day, or the kids are going to be out walking the trails, and this is going to completely collapse, or in the winter time even, with all the snow. If ever we get another snowstorm, or an ice storm rather, and it weighs down the tree, these could easily collapse here. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. Look at that, never noticed. We got a fat pile of rocks here. Those are big. Wouldn't even be able to lift those. But at least I know there's another spot here we can come and pull rocks out of. Now here's something interesting. I'll show you this cluster here that's coming down. We'll show you that closer up here in a second, but I wanted to show you this stream. This stream, or creek, or whatever you want to call it, actually runs all the way to the front of my property. So I'm looking for ideas of how to harness this water potential, dig this out, maybe flood it with ponds in certain areas. In this middle part here where we have some of our maples does flood a lot in the spring, sometimes in the summer if we have a lot of rainfall. So I'm trying to harness the power of this water. Obviously it could be used for a number of things, but if I can get it flowing enough, I'd love to be able to generate some power from it. Obviously you can see it's not it's not raging currents here. Ain't no white caps, but there's potential there. It's potential, and there's enough water, there's enough of a flow that it goes all the way to the road, all the way to the ditch in the front. So let's go check out this really dangerous area here that I'm not a fan of. I don't even know how I'm going to clean this up. The other thing that makes this tricky is those trees are technically on my neighbor's property. So I'm going to have to go talk to them and see what we can do. Maybe we can join forces and get this done in an afternoon. I don't know. But this is very precarious and dangerous. There's got to be a dozen trees all hung up on themselves. You can see that one there collapsed. Probably fell on these other smaller ones, then they fell. It's just enough to get by with the four-wheeler right now, but I don't like it. I don't like it. There's a couple of spots like this. You can see that other, might be a birch, or that other tree over there that's leaning. I'll probably take that one down too. There's all kinds of little spots like this. They need to be cleaned up, and the longer it sits like this, the more dangerous it's going to be. Wow, I never noticed those other ones in the back too that are leaning pretty heavy. So that's going to be a job and a half. I'm not a skilled woodcutter or proficient with the chainsaw necessarily. This will be good practice. But yeah, this really needs to be cleaned up. This is probably the most high priority area that needs to be done. Anyway, continuing on. It does create a little bit of a tunnel here, which is cool, but it's just really dangerous, that's all. Suppose I could always start with some of those smaller ones, cut those, get those out of the way, then start moving up without hopefully the whole thing collapsing on me. But safety first. I'll have to wear my hard hat and one piece at a time. What makes it tricky is when it gets hung up on a big tree like that. Really hard to get that down. I have to get the ladder out here too, and that adds to the element of danger, but let's keep on walking. I'm also on the lookout for wild edibles, as always. I know that we have gooseberries out here. They're probably not even close to being ready. There's a patch of them back there. Gooseberries, elderberries. There are... Oh, can you hear the woodpecker? If I remember on the way back, I'll show you this massive woodpecker, what he's done to some of our cedar trees. You would not believe the holes he's made. I'm going to have to paint it or something to prevent it from dying. But we also tried to propagate some wild ramps, also known as wild leeks or wild garlics. Trying to get those going here because I think they would do well, and since they're so endangered from being overpicked, I'd like to protect them as much as possible. My sister has a fairly good supply of them on her property, so I'd like to go and grab a few for transplant and make sure that our family has those to consume for years, for decades, for centuries if I can, while protecting the species. A lot of people will come, from other provinces and stuff, and they'll just clear cut. They'll just ravage the area and take them all, and then they have no chance of coming back after. Wow, I just noticed this huge birch. Check this out. Never noticed this guy before. This is on my neighbor's property, but look at the size of this birch. This is one of the only sections that has white birch. Of this size, anyway. They tend to grow in clusters, and we have no birch that are even remotely close to this. There's maybe one or two on our property, but not that big. So, and here you can see the rut from my four-wheeler of having to slam on the brakes because my son has a heavy foot or a heavy thumb. I'm trying to teach him how to drive the four-wheeler, and he's just treating it like an amusement park. So I had to slam on the brakes here so we didn't run into this tree. He didn't turn sharp enough, but I guess that's live and learn. Let's keep on going down the trail. As I'm walking along, I'm also looking for scat from various animals, trying to identify what might be roaming around here. Since the neighbors moved in, they have 14 dogs, so we haven't seen a whole lot of wildlife anymore, but there are still foxes around. We found what we think is a cat skull. So something's been eating the barn cats around here. It's either that or some kind of a weasel, maybe a fisher. Can't really tell. The teeth don't look like cat teeth, but they could be pushed back. It could be damaged, I'm not sure. I don't think that skull is around anymore, but I may have pictures of it to show you. But yeah, just looking for evidence, tracks, scat of different animals that might be around. We have coyotes in the area. There's lots of foxes, or at least there used to be. And anything else that I may not have noticed before. Coming up on the site of a future cabin that I want to build. So as you can see here behind me, hopefully the light doesn't glare too much, but right up here, notice how the ground kind of slopes down here. So right at the top of this little slope is where I want to set up a cabin. We've got our maples here. This is the three sisters. One sister, two sisters, three sisters. So it would be kind of nice to have the stove out here and to be able to do some real backwoods maple syrup evaporating. But eventually, yeah, that's where I want to set up. It'll be a high point on the ground, so it should never flood. Should always, the water should always flow away from the cabin. That'll be a project for another year, maybe another decade. I don't know. A lot of projects on the go right now, so I can't even think about that one right now. But I could always start cleaning it up and planning for it. You can never be too careful when it comes to planning. I just wanted to share that with you, that this will be a site of future development. Looking up at this beautiful sunrise here, I'm reminded also that I want to set up some type of a blind, not for hunting, but for just sitting up in a tree and taking in the rays, enjoying the day at a distance. So, need some place that has full sun in the woods to just come and relax, is what I'm trying to say. And a blind somewhere, a tree house of some kind, way up there, even though I'm not a fan of heights. Do something every day that scares you. I think that was Eleanor Roosevelt said that. It's so true. Push your boundaries. You only live once, right? So here's one example of a tree that has a tree protector on it, which is obviously a maple. I don't see why my grandfather would have protected any other tree. There's another one over there. Another one over there. Pretty sure they can be removed at this point. They're big enough that I think even if something came along and chewed on it, it would probably survive. I mean, unless it's stifling the tree, I'll probably leave it. But a lot of these are ready to come off, and they're probably so tight that I'm going to have to cut them off with my knife. So, take a closer look at that. So on second thought, these smaller ones like this one and that one over there, I'm going to leave that one, but I did remove this one here because it is starting to damage the wood and the bark. It's getting some kind of funky, I don't know if it's mold or something underneath, but this one too, the bark is not looking in good shape, so hopefully that'll be able to dry out and heal itself now that I've taken the tree protector off. Looking around here, and I think that's it for this section, so we can start heading back home. I'm glad I found those two though. These trees will benefit from having that removed, I'm sure. On another little side note here, here's one of the trees that we tapped 3 times with the tubes. This is a triple tap, as you'll recall, the one that was going and kind of wrapping around the tree. I just wanted to give you a shot at how quickly the tree will repair itself. So hopefully with the light you're able to see that, but no sap flowing out. Obviously it's not going to flow during this time of year, but you can already see the hole's diameter is starting to close in on itself. It really doesn't take long, and the ones that do stay open, some of them don't heal completely. Like, see this old one? It's always going to have that hole, but the inside, the Cambrian layer will heal relatively quickly, to the point where from one year to the next, see this one here, perfect example, didn't heal completely. So the other thing is, I'm hoping that with the new taps that I'm going to upgrade to, hopefully next year, we'll be able to prevent all that. Here's another great example of a branch that's not 3 branches actually. They're not doing that great. And by removing those, I'll have somewhere to plant shiitake, inoculate shiitake mushrooms, and also give some more light to these small guys over here that I just removed the tree protectors. That'll give them more light to then grow and mature, and we'll be able to tap those. Hey, I think those are more maples over there. Never noticed that. So those will be ready in a couple of years, or at least that one in the front. Nice. That was a good little discovery. Pretty sure that's a maple. Again, I'm not that great with my tree identification just yet, but I'm pretty damn sure that's a maple. I think my uncle said that was a maple. Still too small, but next year for sure. That'll be 29. There's that woodpecker again. We'll see if we can find him on the way back. So here is a very good spot, exactly what I was talking about. Look at the sun. Look at the sun you get here for pretty much the better part of the day. It's just going to follow this arc all the way back until it gets here. to these maples and just kind of get hidden a bit. But this is beautiful sun right here. It's got to be 5-10 degrees warmer right here. So I'd love to just even set up a lawn chair and just hang out, warm up a bit. Love it. Love it. There's not really a lot better that goes with sun and your morning coffee and your morning constitutional. So I'm going to stay here for a few minutes. I've been trying to capture them, but they're too quick for me. But we got the Canadian geese coming home. They keep flying overhead, honking at me. Now this is an area here where I don't want to call it a mistake, but it was a learning lesson for me. Is I had plans of, and I haven't given up on it yet, but there were plans to have a forest garden out here. That's why all the wood chips are here. We chipped a whole bunch of wood and dumped it here with the idea of flattening it out in the spring, which we've done a little bit here, as you can see. But the forest garden is a little beyond what we're ready to do right now. Might start it on a small scale, but we're focusing mostly on our zone 1 right now, zone 2 max. So this is definitely a zone 4. So not quite ready for that, but it's a good place to draw wood chips from when we need them. This birch is overhanging as well. Tends to teeter over the path, which makes me nervous, but it's one of our few birch, so Ange doesn't want me to cut it, but I don't know if I can pull it back maybe with a rope. Get it to grow straight a little bit more. It's still alive, so it probably won't fall, but I don't know. It freaks me out. These poles here, I've been pulling them out. I had them stored and drying for the winter. Not sure what I'm going to do with them yet. Either fence posts, or I might chop them up and do the supports for my garden bed like I wanted to do. Still undecided yet. We have a nice little supply here of long posts. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So thanks for joining me, my friends, for the first beginnings of our greenhouse. The base of it anyway, and my morning constitutional. So hope you have a great day, great week. Enjoy yourself, enjoy life, garden, all that good stuff. Join us again next time for another vlog. Take care.